Hello, YouTube. This is my second time at trying to be live tonight. I went live earlier, and then when I finished up, I went back and played it and realized none of you would be able to hear me. Something wrong with my microphone. I apologize about that. Um, so tonight we're going to be smoking some Stonehenge Flake on our Thursday night smoke. And for those of you who don't know, this is a blend by GLPs. He blended this or came up with this blend with John Gawith back in 2001. It went off the market. It was a limited run, went off the market, reintroduced it recently again, I think June of 2017. I stumbled upon it shortly thereafter, and it's a tobacco I love, but I love it for very sentimental reasons. And I haven't been smoking pipe tobacco long enough because it reminds me of its previous. It's because it reminds me of a person. So with that, let me give you some of the little bit of info on Stonehenge Flake. All right, so you can see it's got the nice little tin art of Stonehenge. So what is Stonehenge Flake? First of all, it is supposedly a VaPer with a little bit of burley mixed in. And that's kind of a long story. If you go to GLP's website, he describes the whole process of why they only made it once and didn't make it again. But now he feels like he can find the tobacco to do it. But it is a VaPer, in theory. It is cut into these little flakes, and they're more like Galwith and Hogarth flakes. So they're not like they're not going to be like the flakes you get from the HH line or like Orlick Golden Slice or anything like that. These are going to be flakes that are a little bit more Galwith flakes. So they're mostly flake shaped. They're pretty thin, and they're a little bit fatter than the others. And sometimes they're broken up, sometimes they're intact. Just kind of depends. It doesn't seem like there's real good quality control on that. I've had about 4 tins of this, and 3 out of the 4 the flakes were, you could make them out, but when you tried to kind of separate them out, they all jumbled apart, so you didn't get very many flakes. The first one I got, you got a lot of flakes. This one's kind of a mixture of the two. So I had 1 flake that I could show you, and but my very first couple of bowls out of this tin that I've smoked, I could not. I kind of just had to piece together some flakes, rub them out, and smoke them. The reason why I say this is supposedly a VaPer, and in my opinion is not a VaPer, is because traditionally when you have a VaPer, it's just straight Virginia and Perique. Doesn't have any burley, but some do, so that's not a huge strike against it. But the main reason why is because, and Galwith should include you into this, but if you're new to it, you may not have known, there are Lakeland essences on this. That means there is a casing. And Lakeland essences have a particular following. Many people like them, many people do not. So it's very divisive, but it dominates this smoke. Not in a, in my opinion, in a bad way, but in the first third of this bowl, Lakeland essence is heavy. Okay. So if you're not a big fan of that, if you're new to it and you're trying to figure out what is Lakeland essence and what does it taste like, here's what I say when it reminds me of a person and why I love this tobacco. My grandmother was a cigarette smoker. And on top of that, she used to heavily kind of perfume her house and herself. And so when I smoke this tobacco and the tobacco begins to burn, you get that smell of burning tobacco, not cigarette smoke, but burning tobacco. And this Lakeland essence has a very much kind of like a rosewater floral smell to it, not as in Latakia floral incensey, no, like as in a perfumey smell to it. And you go, well, that's horrible. Who would want that? And I get it. I get why people don't like Lakeland essences. And I've had other tobaccos that have Lakeland essences that I have not liked. But this one, those two combinations of this particular blend really brings me right back to my grandmother's house, sitting next to her, and she passed away about 7 years ago. And so for me, there's a fondness to this tobacco, regardless of how it tastes, because it reminds me of a person. And there's a lot in pipe tobacco that's that. It reminds you of good conversations that you've had, deep, meaningful conversations. It reminds you of people. I bet many of you smoke a pipe today because someone you knew and loved smoked a pipe before you. Okay. So that's why I love this blend. But let me give you a little bit more to decide whether you want to invest the, I don't know, $11, $12 it is in a tin of this to see if you want to try it. I'd say go ahead and try it, just because, let's face it, it's only $12. But so one of the things that you get on the tin note itself is you smell the Virginias, but there's something that's competing with it right away. It's whatever that Lakeland topping is that they've put on there, and it's got a heavy cocoa smell. So you get it and you smell right away a chocolatey smell. But it's competing with that Virginians, and you got that in there. And then you've got Perique is in there. You can smell that kind of figgy, fig Newton smell, as my wife always says whenever I tell her smell some tobacco. She says fig Newtons. But it's also got, and I think this is part of the topping too, it's got something that reminds me of licorice. But it's not quite that, but it's something similar to that. So again, if you don't like licorice and if you don't like Lakeland Essence, you're probably not going to like this. But there's still, it's a special tobacco. I think the flake matters a good bit. Now let's talk about preparation and how you should smoke it. I've smoked this in a lot of different bowls. I'll tell you, I find it best in a small bowl, and I really enjoy rubbing it out a little bit, but not very finely, so that there's still big chunks and it burns slowly and coolly. But it smokes fine if you rub it out fully. It smokes great if you fold it and stuff it, if your container has flakes that you can do that with. So it's a good smoke. I'm probably about a third into this bowl. So let me light back up and tell you a little bit about the taste. Now, I've already told you, that reminds me of my grandmother, smoke and perfume. The thing you got to know about that is that that's really heavy on the first third of the bowl. After that first third, that begins to subside. And it's still there and it's still present, but it's not heavy on the perfume thing. And you're like, old lady perfume doesn't sound good to me. We've all got grandmothers, though. And it might remind you of yours. Weird advertisement for tobacco. I get it. But in the middle of the bowl, I think after those Virginias have had time to kind of stove a little bit and they've charred just a bit, and as you begin to get to them and they begin to burn and smolder, they take on some of that deep cocoa, and that cocoa begins to kind of enforce itself. So you get these darker chocolatey flavors. Maybe a part of that is too a burley that's in there begins to assert itself. But I really find that mid bowl. And by the time I get down to my third bottom of the bowl, I find that those flavors have vanished. And I'm very much in that last third bowl, more of a heavy Perique, Virginia Perique blend, VaPer blend. And that would be kind of my way of saying it. It goes through three stages. Heavy on the Lakeland Essence. Lakeland Essence goes to the background. You get more chocolatey, sweet tones. And then you move in that last bit and you get spice. And the Lakeland Essence isn't really to be found anywhere at that point. In my opinion, it's kind of burned away. Unless you're doing a relight, it seems to come around more on a relight. But that's my impression of Stonehenge Flake. I love the tobacco. I've opened up that tin, so I need to order a couple more so I can have plenty in my stash to go and for them to age. This particular One is over a year old. It was manufactured on 9/27 of 17. So I've got a little bit that's aging in there, but I like this tobacco. I'd encourage you to try it out. If you never tried Lakeland Essence, try it. If you hate Lakeland Essence, don't bother. But if you're neutral, you like it, or you never tried it, try it out. I get mine from Smoking Pipes, 11.50 a canister. I throw in a few more, and then the shipping kind of gets broken up amongst several tins. But anyway, it is a good blend. I strongly encourage you to try it out for nothing else than to say you've tried the tobacco that everybody went crazy for in June of 2017. This is the Earl of Pipes. I'm going to sign off now. Y'all have a great evening.